सेव किया था ना?
मैं सिर्फ इसलिए गया था क्योंकि उसने मुझे कॉल किया, that's it. But listen तो.
Save it for someone else.
जिंदगी में सेव करना जरूरी है, मगर जब बात पैसों की हो, सिर्फ सेविंग से काम नहीं चलेगा। इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट कीजिए और अपने सेविंग्स को आगे बढ़ने का मौका दीजिए।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Today's episode of Cut The Clutter is an unusual one. It's an unusual one because it's based on a set of findings which have just come up sort of serendipitously when I was looking for something else. So we just had a couple of days ago an episode on the new agreement that India and the US are finalizing for building GE F414 engines at HAL in joint manufacturing with GE, the American company. These will go into the next stage, the next development of Tejas series, Tejas Mark II, and many other fighter aircraft that HAL and Aeronautical Development Authority are developing. While doing that, it occurred to me that this would mean a big leg up for HAL. What is it doing to HAL? What will it mean to HAL's order books? And let's check what does it mean to HAL in stock markets, because HAL is a listed company. Remember in 2018, in the midst of the controversy, government decided to hold an IPO and list HAL. When HAL got listed, 5 years back, when HAL got listed, in fact, I had then done a national interest column and also a Cut The Clutter saying that HAL was being unnecessarily glorified in the sense that HAL nahi hoga to pata nahi, if HAL is not there, what will happen? Great national asset, and great national asset as it was. Until then, it was not seen as a value creator. And once again, sometimes the best thing, you might have read 50 lessons on how to swim, you might have seen 50 demonstrations on video, you might have done mock practicing, or a pilot might have sat in a simulator 100 times, but the real test comes when you do the real thing. So once again, for a company, the real test is when the company lists on stock markets, because then the discovery of the price and value discovery takes place. So when HAL got listed 5 years ago, and this was at a time when the story was, particularly from the Congress party and others, the story was we call out everybody's bullshit, all sides, because Cut The Clutter is based on facts. The allegation, the charge was that because HAL had been denied the Rafale co-manufacture deal, HAL was being destroyed. So HAL was listed with a market cap of just 18,000 crores. So I had also noticed, look, such a big company, huge company, such an old history. By the way, it started out as a private company in the 40s, was nationalized like, say, Air India, but single customer, monopoly company, monopoly over the customer, control over the customer, mainly doing co-manufacture, which means developing very little, but getting stuff from Soviet Union and then Russia and putting it together, right? And basically selling it at a prefixed profit. And yet its market cap was 18,000. In 5 years, what has happened? So as I started looking at it, this was in the wake of the GE F414 engine co-manufacture deal. As I began researching HAL a bit more, suddenly something popped out and stared me in the face. That in the past 5 years, since it got listed, HAL is actually more than 6 times of the value at which it had listed. It had listed at a value of 18,000 crores. It is today 1,14,000 crores. 1,14,000 crores for HAL. Now, okay, 1.17 trillion. These days, when we talk about our big companies, conglomerates, we treat trillions very lightly. But look at the PSUs in India. If you look at the PSUs, including Government of India's Maharatnas and Navratnas, see what is happening. If you look at the PSUs, see where HAL ranks now. That is a big surprise story of the past 5 years. Among the PSUs, okay, ONGC is the king, 1.96 trillion. That's a lot. Coal India, number 2, 1.4 trillion. Indian Oil Corporation, 1.27 trillion. These three companies are more or less monopolies in their areas. Coal India is a true monopoly. Indian Oil for distribution, etc., is one of the monopolies. ONGC for oil exploration, I know that there is Vedanta and there's a couple of other possibilities, but those are still latter day entrants. So more or less, ONGC is also a monopoly. So these three monopolies, and right next to them, who's number 4? You might have thought that maybe Steel Authority of India will be number 4. Among the oldest steel companies, big multi-center, multi-plant steel companies in the entire region. Certainly in India, after the first ones by the Tatas in Jamshedpur, it has big plants, Rourkela, Bokaro, etc., etc. Its market cap today is 34,000 crores. What that means is that HAL already is more than three times the value of SAIL, more than twice the value of PNB. Please look at this graphic. Punjab National Bank, which is the second biggest PSU bank in India, more than twice the value of PNB, and almost 50% more than the value of another of the petroleum distribution monopolies, that is BPCL. So this, what has happened to HAL actually is a bit of a miracle, particularly in the PSU universe. Now see also the picture with our defense PSUs. So while defense production has been opened out to the private sector, those are early days. A few things are being made in the private sector. There's an artillery gun, there's a transport aircraft that the Tatas and the Spanish partners are building, but those are works in progress. Still, defense PSUs get a lot of the government orders, but the fact is that orders are now taking place. And it seems that defense PSUs have also got their act together. So first of all, look at the value that is embedded in the key defense PSUs now. So this is our next chart. Once again, HAL 1.17 trillion, Bharat Electronics Limited. That has grown, although as you will see further on as I come with the other charts, it has not grown as much in market cap or share price as the other defense PSUs, but still 85,900 crores. Then Bharat Dynamics, they make missiles for the Indian Armed Forces, besides other things, but missiles primarily. That is 21,156 crores. Mazgaon Dockyards, which makes both fighter ships and especially submarines, the Scorpion submarines which are now being built, Mazgaon Docks is building. That is 20,000 crores. And Bharat Earth Mover Limited, which makes heavy trucks and things, 6,200 crores. And Garden Reach Shipbuilders, that is 5,700 crores. This is the total value of each one of these companies, but that is not the full story. To understand the full story, we have to look at what's been happening to their share prices. So first of all, see this chart. This chart tells you of what has happened to the share prices of these companies over the past 1 year. And none of these figures make any sense unless they are relative to something. So we are seeing these figures relative to the Sensex. We could have chosen Nifty, but it's the same thing or a similar thing. There are minor differences. You can choose one or the other. We've chosen Sensex. 14.6% is the change in Sensex. Sensex has grown 14.6% in the past year, which is very good because if on your investment, if you just bought an index has gone up by 14%. If you just bought an index fund, it's very good return, particularly with the tax breaks, the special tax treatment you get on equity. You would be very happy with a 14.6% increase on the Sensex. But look at the defense PSUs. I will go in the ascending order, although you are seeing the graphic on your screens, but ascending order. Sensex 14.6%, Bharat Earth Movers, BEML 14.8%, so about the same as Sensex. Usually we are inured to PSUs actually underperforming the indices by long distances, and that's why we keep on saying that PSUs are value destroyers. So in this case, BEML about the same rate as the Sensex, which is not bad, and usually you will say, oh good, at least there is a PSU which is matching the Sensex or which is tracking the Sensex. But then go in the ascending order, Bharat Dynamics has gone up by 41.9%. That becomes almost 3 times the rise in Sensex in the past 1 year is Bharat Dynamics Limited, the missile maker, 41.9%. Then go up the ascending order, HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, again in the past year has gone up by 83.8%. That's almost 6 times. This is not precise calculation. I'm rounding off these figures. Almost 6 times of the Sensex increase. So HAL has busted the Sensex by 6 times, 6x in this last year, last 12 months. Then look at Garden Reach Shipbuilders. That is again a company that builds ships for Indian Navy, particularly corvettes, some destroyers. That share price has gone up by 102.6%. That means that Garden Reach Shipbuilders have beaten the Sensex 7x by 7 times. And finally, look at Mazgaon Docks. Mazgaon Docks is making some destroyers for the Navy, but more importantly, it's been making the Scorpion submarine in India in a joint production deal. And Indian Navy has been buying those submarines. It has committed orders. The last of those submarines has now been fitted out and it's now gone for sea trials. And Mazgaon Dock, the naval ship and submarine maker, has risen to 74.3% in this year. That is 20x, 20 times of the Sensex rise in this year. And by the way, Sensex rise of 14.6% also, as we said in the very beginning, is quite robust. So something is happening that defense PSUs are not just bucking the trend with PSUs in general, but they are also bucking the trend with the markets. So if there was an index based on defense PSU stocks and you had bought that index, on an average, you might have done 5 or 6 times better than buying an index-based and larger index-based fund. Once again, you might say, oh, 1 year, maybe something happened in 1 year, lots of orders are given, so this has gone up. So let's look at the picture over the past 5 years. And I'm now showing you the chart for the past 5 years. If you see the past 5 years, again go up in the ascending order. So at the lowest level, BEML, again it makes trucks and things, heavy trucks and things, 74%. So at 74%, it trails the Sensex by a little. 74%, Sensex has gone up by 78% in this 5 years, which is also robust, right? 78-year increase in 5 years is good. BEML 74%, but go in the ascending order, Bharat Dynamics 189%. So that is 2.5 times, approximately 2.5 times of Sensex over 5 years. Then you come to Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, the biggest company, that has gone up 249% in these 5 years. So they have beaten the Sensex over 5 years by 3x. So that company has risen 3 times the Sensex in these 5 years. And then come to Garden Reach, the naval shipbuilder, 381%. That is 5x of the Sensex, 5 times the Sensex. And Mazgaon Dock, 495%. That is 6.5 times. All these are approximate calculations, 6.5 times of Sensex. So this is not just a flutter or a fluke. A trend has become quite well established now. The defense PSUs are prospering over 5 years, not over 1 year, 6 months. They are now in the markets. As I said earlier on, you might have trained a pilot for however long. On a simulator, the real test comes when you put the pilot in a cockpit and the pilot takes off and is on his or her own. The corporate equivalent of that is a company listing in the stock markets, because people who buy or sell your shares, they have no sentiment, right? Their only sentiment is about whether the share price will go up or down. Will the market go up or down? They are not buying or selling a share because they look at the flag and they say, look, this company represents my country, so I should put my money in this company. People who have surpluses of money don't think like that, because if they thought like that, they would not have any surpluses of money. That is the reality. And now that you've seen all this, you can imagine how each of these companies, defense PSUs, share price is moving. So see this last set of graphics for each company, and you can see in each case it's up like this. Now, why is it happening? Finally, why is it happening? First of all, while the defense budget in India has not gone up as a percentage of our GDP, everybody complains every time the budget comes out saying that as a percentage of GDP, it has not gone up. So Modi government or any government is not upping the defense budget as a percentage of GDP. Now, each time this happens, we also make the point that, look, the GDP does not belong to the government. The government has its revenues, taxes, borrowings. The GDP belongs to everybody, right? Even the panwala in your street, the Uber driver who drives you home or drives you to work, you yourself. GDP is every farmer's income, every laborer's income. GDP belongs to everybody. So government can't just dip into all of the GDP. Second, while it's one thing to say that defense budget is not going up as a percentage of the GDP, the fact is that the GDP is going up. So as the GDP goes up, what is available to the defense forces to buy or order also goes up. Second important thing is that as the defense forces also become more efficient, they become more efficient by cutting some costs here and there, and also as they become more focused on domestic production. In India's case, most of it is co-production. India is producing very little which is entirely of its own. Certainly, the helicopters that HAL is producing, it's an Indian design, Indian concept. It has a lot of components which are imported or which are done in joint ventures, joint production, including the engine or Tejas the fighter. So a lot of these are Indian ideas and Indian concepts with a lot of imported content, but orders are now being placed with these companies. So the underlying story here is that the armed forces after a long time are placing orders. So all these companies whose share prices are going up like this, they are not going up like this because some Ketan Parekh or some Harshad Mehta has come in and is upping the share prices of Government of India's defense PSUs. These are going up because they are selling. The second point is, and you might say that Shekhar Gupta, you've always been saying that India should do more and more in the private sector and government should get out of business. Now that position does not change. Government should get out of business and ideally, all of this in the ideal world, all of this should have been done by the private sector. But look at the change. It's all relative. Nothing happens. The revolution doesn't happen overnight. So first of all, the fact that defense PSUs got listed on stock markets, that is progress and that is reform because now there is price discovery. And people also by and large see that these companies are doing well, more money will come in, these companies can expand. Second, in the same period, orders are beginning to get placed with the private sector also. And we've seen the artillery guns, we've seen the C-295 transport aircraft, and more orders are being placed with more private companies. Of course, in my ideal world, all these defense PSUs will compete with private companies. So DRDO, Aeronautical Development Establishment, they will say, we have developed the next generation of fighter aircraft. Come HAL, come Tata, come L&T, come Ambani, come Adani, come whoever, right? Make me 300 copies of this aircraft, quote your price. Because just as by listing these companies on stock markets, you've made it possible for the citizen, investor, the markets to discover their price, to discover their value. Similarly, it's only when there is competition in the market on who will make an aircraft of these specifications, or a tank of these specifications, or a missile of these specifications, incorporating the research that DRDO and others have done, because that is what the government is supposed to do. And the armed forces are then able to see those competitive bids within Indian companies with joint venture partners overseas, just as HAL has, and then make the best deal. Then price discovery of these equipments and weapon systems will also take place. That is not quite happening right now because HAL knows that Indian Air Force has no choice but to buy Tejas. Indian Air Force knows it has no choice but to buy Tejas. So what negotiations go on there probably is basically lots of cups of tea and coffee and lots of talk and lots of patting each other's backs. So that barrier is yet to be crossed. But what has happened so far is good progress. And in the process, you know what? Government of India, the President of India, who's the holder of all these government shares, is much richer than it was 5 years back on the strength of these defense PSUs because they've let them a little bit free. Listing any company on the market is to let them be at least a little bit free. In fact, more than a little bit free because you can then no longer control the value of this company. See LIC. LIC was listed. It has lost a lot of value. Government can't control it. Now the state, however powerful it may be, cannot order the markets, oh, I listed the LIC at this price, it can't go down below this. Aisa nahi hota hai. It doesn't happen like that. Similarly, if the defense PSUs are doing so much better, it tells you that something has gone right. This is not something that any government can influence. This is a first step. I can only hope, and this is my opinion and a hope that this reform will now also reach out to the private sector. And more private weapon manufacturers and military system builders will come in and they will grow, and these same defense PSUs will then compete with them. When that happens, it will be good for the armed forces, it will be good for the shareholders of all these companies, and most important, it will be all good, much better for India.